to essential movements to loosen up those hips. So we're going to work on a lot of hip mobility today, some stretching, and all that good stuff. But before we get started, I want to focus on telling you more about what we're actually working here, those hip flexors. So a lot of times if we're sitting a lot, we might say, oh, my hip flexors are super tight, I got to stretch them out. Hip flexors are referring to a group of muscles. So the first main one is the psoas. So the psoas starts at the top of your, and inserts along your lower lumbar spine here. So your upper and lower lumbar spine. It starts at the top here, and it comes down around and inserts into the top of your femur, okay? The iliacus is inside of your hip bones here, inside of your hips, kind of really deep down in there alongside of the hip bone, and it comes down also and inserts into the top of the femur. Those are the two main hip flexor muscles, but of course you have a lot of other muscles that work alongside of it. The rectus femoris, right at the top here, the sartorius. There's all sorts of different muscles that integrate into the hip flexor, but as far as hip flexion goes, this motion, that is the psoas and the iliacus, or we also call that group the iliopsoas. So what I want you to focus on is moving slowly through these movements, breathing, using your breath to move through the movements as you need to. Everybody's at a different level, and that's okay. You need to focus on what you need. You may feel one side is tighter than the other. That's normal. Take note of that, think about that, and then when you're doing these kinds of movements or during your day, you know that if this side is tighter than this side, you can stretch this side or mobilize this side a little bit more. With that, you also want to strengthen. So we have a lot of workouts that have to do with strengthening the hips and the glutes, and we want you to do that as well. So lengthen, mobilize, and strengthen. All right, with that, I think we're ready to get started. Let's do it. All right, so we're gonna get started here. I'm just gonna have you move side to side as we start just getting our hips moving here. So each workout, each movement is gonna be 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're gonna start low down here, okay? You're gonna push off as you do. We're gonna raise up, bring that knee across, and land softly on the other side. Now each of these moves, I don't want you to rush through them. This one is especially good for balance as well. So take your breaths, breathe through each movement. Feel those muscles that are stretching. So you got an inner thigh stretch. Your inner thighs are also part of that hip flexion, that hip mobility group. So as you push off with this leg, breathe out. Good. Move slow, breathe. If any one of these feel particularly good to you, you can keep going even as we move on. That is completely fine. Good. Keep it going here. So as you're doing this, I want you to think about too, is your posture. Are your shoulders hunching forward? Are you doing this? Roll them back, nice and straight. Core is engaged. So pretend like you have something you're stepping over. We do that in real life too, right? We have to step over a baby gate, or step over the dog or the cat or the kid or whatever. We're gonna move our hips. It's part of real life movement. Good. All right. Now going into a front lunge. So coming down really nice and low. Now an option here, you can put your knee down if you'd like. That is fine. What we really want to focus on is stretching that hip flexor. So we're going to reach up. We're also going to lean. So you're taking your hands and you're leaning over to the side here, coming up, and then bringing it down. Let's do a chest stretch here as well, thinking about our posture throughout the day. Good. Bring those arms up. Bring that toe in if you brought your knee down. Now I want you, as you're going, you're going to shift both feet forward. Pretend like you're going underneath something. Going into the other side. Reach up. Again, you can put your knee down if you'd like. Lean. This is also, you're going to feel that stretch right in that psoas, that hip flexor, because where it does, inserts at the top of your back, it comes down. It wants to pull that way. So we're stretching this way. Bring it up. Arms down. Chest stretch. Make sure you're breathing. Bring it up. Good. Toes forward. Bring it down. Now I want you just to hold it here and shift back and forth. We're going to be going on the floor, going to our wall or bench or whatever you have. 3, 2, 1. Good. All right. So if you have a towel or if you have a really hard surface, you're going to put your mat underneath that. One foot is going to go up against the wall or the bench or the couch. The other foot's going to come out here. We're going to put our knee down, find a nice stance. We're going to straighten up. So roll the shoulders back. This is going to be more of a static hold here. Okay, so what you're really feeling, you're extending your hip flexor as well as feeling that rectus femoris, that muscle, that quad muscle right in the front. One of its jobs is hip flexion, so moving your hip up. Obviously, it has more jobs than just that too, but this is also important to stretch and mobilize as well. Good. All right, we're going to switch sides here, so bring that foot down, switch to the other side, making sure you don't have your foot too close because you want to protect that knee. You want to have a nice wide stance here. Shoulders are back. Woo. At 18 seconds. We're going to be sitting on our bottom, so if you want your mat, roll it out. Breathe through it. So you also want to make sure you're not like letting your back arch here. You're pushing forward, feeling that hip flexor stretch, okay? So hip tailbone is down. All right, we're going to get the mat out here. Butterfly stretch. You're very familiar with butterfly. So you can get into that position whenever you're ready. I'm going to kind of angle myself here. So I want you to kind of move around a little bit. Maybe open up your sit bones a little. Bring your heels closer to your pelvis. You can bring your knees, your elbows down a little bit, kind of shift. Just play around. Just see what feels good. Kind of butterfly your knees up and down. So we're opening up that pelvic floor as well. Lots of different work, even as you're working, even as you're thinking about one particular area. Good, we got about 30 seconds here. So you can hold still, you can move. If you just slow down, think about your breaths, opening up that rib cage, getting that nice deep 360 breathing to the sides, front and back. Not letting those shoulders rise. Good. We're going to go into frogs here next. Really open up those hips. You're going to go on your hands and knees. So what I want you to do is turn your toes out on both sides. Knees coming out to the sides. And again, this is everybody's at a different mobility level. So, okay, so I'm going to come down on my forearms here. Fingers are forward. And just kind of shift. Kind of feel what you need to feel here. If there's some spot that's extra tight, then kind of just stay there. Shift your hips a little bit. You want your hip bones down so you're not angled weird or up or whatever. Shifting forward and back. You can also just find stillness too. If you find a spot that just particularly needs it, that's okay. So you want to make sure your feet aren't angled way out here and they're not coming in. If you do it this way, you can feel that it relieves some of that tension on your hips, okay? We want to put a little bit of stretch in those hip flexors. That's why we're here. So if you scoot your butt back a little bit, you can feel it even more. Good. We got pigeon coming up next. A lot of animals in this workout. So if I move my hips back, I can feel that stretch even more. So I'm going to just kind of push there. All right, come on up. So you're going to bring one knee through. This is full pigeon, where your foot is back. You can also be in half pigeon here. So if this feels better for you, where you feel like you have more control, it's not as stretching, it doesn't hurt, then you can go here. Otherwise you can go into a full pigeon, moving those hips down, sitting up a little taller. You can also play around here. Leaning forward, you're going to feel more of a stretch in that glute on the other side here. What you don't want is to be opening up the hip, because then you're not stretching that hip flexor. You're cheating a little bit. So you want to bring that hip flexor down, bring those hips down, and stretch here. So again, you can kind of move a little bit. All right, let's switch sides. However you need to get there. Breathe through it. Good. Whew. One side is definitely a little tighter than the other. All good. All right, we got a yogi squat next. If you want to grab a yoga block or that towel, have it handy if you'd like. That is okay. We're going to be here for a little bit, so keep that in mind. All right, yogi squat. Heels are down. Okay, so this is also a good one. So we're opening up the hips. The adductors are also part of that hip flexor group, or it supports the hip flexors and the hip flexion. Okay. So we're stretching that out here. We're also opening up the pelvic floor. This is very good if you have a tight pelvic floor, if you tend to hold a lot of tension. We want to open up that pelvic floor. Also, try to think about not letting your arches collapse. So a lot of times people might do this. Try to really open it up. Now, if you're having trouble, or if this is just really getting uncomfortable, you can put something underneath your hips or your sit bones here. Still feeling that stretch. It's all good. Okay, good. And you can move around a little bit. Now an option here, if you want, you can stay there. You can also come up, stretching out those hamstrings, coming back down. Make sure you're breathing through this. That feels pretty good. Good, you got about 10 seconds here. We're gonna sit on our bottoms next. All right, so sitting down, we're gonna have some internal rotation. So internal rotation is that femur. We want it to move, be able to move inside, okay, so internally. So we're gonna move our hips back and forth here. So try to make it a nice smooth movement. Hands can go in front like a prayer. Now an option here, you can keep doing it this way, or you can add a little bit of a lift here. So coming up into a lift, pushing that pelvis out, stretching out those hip flexors even more. Use that breath. Woo! Feels good. Go at whatever level you need. Now remember, these hip flexors tend to be really tight on a lot of people. Many times because we sit a lot. We sit a lot, so our hip flexors are constantly flexed, so they're going to get tight. And the problem with tight muscles is it means that other muscles are going to start taking over, right? So it takes over. So if our core is really weak, then our hip flexors might come into the play and all that other stuff. All right, we are going to lay on our backs. Bring that knee back. We're going to open up the hip and then rotate through. So you can either hang on to your knee or you can let it go a little bit. Open up that hip. Good, rotate the other way. So what we're doing is we're really mobilizing these hip flexors, getting them stretched out. Good. Let's bring that knee across, so this is more of like a glute stretch here. We want to make sure that we're also going to strengthen our hip flexors as well. And we have lots of videos that you can use for that, those motions and those exercises. Good. Bring it out to the side. We got 20 seconds here. We're going to move it to the other side. Bring it to the front here. Stretch. Feel that hip flexor stretch. You could also probably put a little rolled towel to kind of elevate your hips a little bit so you can get even more of a stretch. All right, let's do the other side here. Bring it to your chest and start rotating through. So you're breathing. Good work, we are almost done here. Good, let's bring it across. Reach, look the other way. Let nice stretch, just enjoy being here. Good, taking that knee, bringing it open up that hip flexor. Feeling it right on your inner thigh. Stretching out those adductors. It's all good stuff. Even though we're moving slow, we're not making, a big sweaty mess. Doing this kind of work is super important for strengthening your body. Mobilization is key in life and in exercise. Good. Bring that knee to your chest. We have just one more stretch here, and then we are done. Good. Bring it up. Stretch to the top. Good work. All right, you can roll to your side. All right, take a deep breath in. All right, so that was your essential movements for loosening up those hips. Feel free to move on to something that's going to strengthen those hips next, since they are all warmed up and ready to go. Otherwise, have an amazing day.